Hi guys, today I am reviewing a deck that has just arrived, hot off the press. It's one that I saw come up, recommended to me, and I was like, oh, go on then. So it's the Olympus Oracle deck with artwork by Rachel Smythe, who illustrated a very popular webtoon comic called Olympus, and I have her set of the books that she's since published as a spin-off from the webtoon series, and I absolutely love her artwork style, what she created for Olympus. So I was excited to see how it was going to be translated to an oracle deck. So it's just arrived. I haven't used it yet, obviously. So let's just have a quick look through and see what this feels like. Okay, so it's pretty standard box size, perhaps a bit bigger than most oracle boxes, and it's got a kind of clamshell thing going on here. I don't think it's magnetic. No, it's not magnetic, but it's pretty solid. Design. Random House Worlds is the publisher, and there's a metallic imprint on it as well. And then inside we have a matte guidebook. Now, it's a lovely size actually, and it's full color. I always appreciate a full color guidebook. And also we've got a little ribbon in there, and it says the fates welcome you, and the cards are what feels like standard oracle deck size cards. So let's just look at the guidebook first. So I think using matte was a lovely choice here and not glossy. There's just something about Rachel's work that it's very watercolory, it's very inky, it's got a pen and ink feel, even though I know she paints digitally. It has a very traditional feel to it. So to use a matte printing finish, I think is really lovely for the guidebook. It's these little things that, you know, I personally notice as an artist that makes me feel like, oh, someone was paying attention to the original artwork. Now, I haven't looked to see whether okay, no, so it says illustrated by H. Holden, so perhaps they took Rachel's inspiration, her artistic style, and adapted it to suit the oracle cards. Because when I was looking at these, I thought these weren't necessarily pieces shown directly in the comic itself. So perhaps there's been an adaptation there, which is kind of cool to see. I wonder how that worked as an illustrator. I'd always feel a bit like, oh my gosh, someone's taking my art style and plugging it into something else. So I need to do some research and find out whether she's spoken about that, how it worked from a, you know, licensing perspective or whatever. But here you're getting a good overview of the cards. It's kind of quite neat to have the cards shown you in this way. The descriptions are pretty straightforward. And what's quite nice is there's a whole section of the deck which is dedicated to the actual characters featured in the Olympus books or webtoon, whichever one you follow. I could do a separate review of the books as well, because I've read both the comic on webtoon and the books, and there is quite a difference between them. So the cards themselves, as I say, they're sort of standard oracle deck size with the rounded corners, and it's got a slight texture to it, which again sort of lends itself to Rachel's artwork, which always has this kind of very subtle texture to it. And as I said, there's a whole set of, you could maybe think of them as major arcana cards. These are the main characters in Olympus. So they've all got their kind of little meanings beneath them. which is quite lovely. And it's cool to revisit some of these characters, you know, if you're familiar with them. And what I love about Rachel's work is the way that she uses color in her work, that each god or goddess was assigned a color. You know, one of the things I sometimes struggled with within the comic was being like, who is this guy? Because obviously sometimes the colors were quite similar. But she has just such a striking style, and the colors really do help you identify what's going on, and also give a lovely feel to the cards. It makes them very bold and striking. So there's a lot you could read from these right off the bat, I would say. And you know, her art style is I hate to say it's not cartoony, it's very graphic novel-y, it's very vibrant, but there's a classical style to it too, there's a Disney style to it as well. It's uniquely her style, and I love it. I love how she, specifically in the webtoon comic, she simplifies characters depending on what's going on, and then exaggerates them, you know, the scenarios. So the rest of the deck is dedicated to more meaning-based cards. So this is where you would, you know, you might get 1 or 2 character cards, or portrait cards they've called them, and then here's where you can derive extra meaning from the cards. And there's a subtle framing element that's being used throughout. The pink is obviously associated with Persephone in her comic Lore Olympus, and then it's framing the word here. So it's quite nice, it's quite subtle. You know, it ties in the brand that she built, so that's really quite lovely, that Rachel built. It feels consistent. And then of course on the back we've got oh gosh, I knew I was going to say the wrong word. I want to say persimmon, but it's not that. You guys know what that is. It's related to Persephone. It's her fruit that she's kind of known for. So you can really see that, like, there's some gnarly cards in here. Decay would be one. You know, one of my criticisms of, no, I still can't find the word for that. One of my criticisms of Oracle is it can sometimes, some Oracle decks don't necessarily address the more negative sides, the more difficult sides, or the more shadow-based sides of life. So having, you know, cards about chaos, grief, guilt, these are all really important things that you could get a lot out of a reading if you've got cards that speak to these things. Indulgence, you know. This is in my video, Tarot versus Oracle. This is why I generally prefer tarot, because you can get into more of these gnarly topics. So I'm loving that I'm seeing things like melancholia and metamorphosis, nostalgia. You know, that's you can find that in tarot, but not necessarily in oracle cards. And there's some nice links to the Lore Olympus books as well. You might not get that if you don't know Lore Olympus, you might not get why this is called Obsession, but this is a character whose car it is. So Apollo was obsessed with Persephone in this book, and he's associated with the color yellow, and this is his sports car. So if you know the books, then you're going to get extra meanings as well, which is kind of cool. Same with this, you know, Persephone's love interest is Hades, so we're seeing his hand coming in here. And we're seeing, you know, anything with this bright pink you're going to know is associated with Persephone. So I think this could be a really interesting deck to work with, because they are tackling some interesting topics here. It's not all fluffy, everything's fine cards. There's some significant things happening, like sacrifice, you know, victory. And this, you know, this is an interesting choice for a victory card. It feels very calm and peaceful. So, you know, it's interesting that they're taking these different perspectives of what these feelings might look like, you know. Same with this one, wisdom, with references to Chiron. So I can see how, although I haven't used readings for this yet, and used it for a reading yet, I can see how you could derive a lot from these. And then, of course, in the book, they're giving you some spread ideas as well as examples. This is always really nice to say, like, how you might read a spread that if it came out like this, which is kind of lovely. And actually, there's a bit at the beginning of this book about getting to know the deck, and also tarot versus oracle decks, which is kind of timely, right? So in the guidebook, it breaks down what are some of the key archetypes associated with these portraits. So once you get to know them, then you can tie them into your readings, just like the tarot major arcana have associations with, you know, they have characteristics and things like that. So my thoughts are, it's exciting. It's a lovely, colorful deck. It's really captured the essence of her work, Rachel Smythe's work. I'm interested to find out how it worked from an illustrator standpoint. You know, I'm personally interested in that. And pomegranate is the word. There we go. I got it in the end. So yeah, I'm going to give these a try. I'm going to do a reading with these and just see what comes through. You know, you could potentially even separate out the portrait cards and say, right, which card in these portraits represents me now, which represents me in the past, which represents me in the future. That would be an interesting little experiment to see what comes through and how relevant it is. I personally feel like it's how you phrase your questions with Oracle and Tarot as to what you get out of it. So I hope you've enjoyed this little unboxing, and yeah, I might do a second one with the books as well, so you can see the two together. Thanks so much for joining me.